Welcome to this special crossover episode of Locked On Coyotes and Locked On Florida Panthers. I'm your host, Robyn Leonio, joined by the Locked On Panthers host, Armando Velez, to talk about Arizona Coyotes versus Florida Panthers. That game going to be set for tonight as they take on each other at the Mullett Arena right here in Tempe, Arizona. Armando, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Despite a little bit of connection issues on my end, we were able to record well as we preview another edition of Cats versus Dog, dry heat versus humidity, and all that. But I, unfortunately, for the people on YouTube, I do not have a mullet grown. Unfortunately, for this edition of the show, nor do I have a fake mullet on me. But hey, we'll do it with what we can.
I should have shipped you the mullet wig that they gave for opening night.
You should have overnight delivery because it was just not too long ago that opening night happened.
No, it was not. But it's been fun though. But we'll get to that in a little bit though. But first, let's get to know the Florida Panthers a little bit. This team looking, relatively different than last year. Like this is a team that now has Matthew Kachuk, and a few other things. But tell us about the changes that this team has made in this last offseason to try to improve.
Yeah, so of course the trade that was heard all around the hockey world with sending Jonathan Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar over to Calgary, and along with a 2025 first round pick and prospect Cole Schwent, who had a great season in the American Hockey League last year for the Charlotte Checkers, in exchange for what they call the unicorn, at least in Bill Zito's words, of Matthew Kachuk. And it's been a treat. He started off on the second line, still has the most shots on goal for the Panthers so far in this season by 13 more than anyone else. But it's been a treat. And he's been able to get going. He's been able to help someone out as a Rudolph Balcers very early on in the season. And Paul Maurice has made a few changes so far as the forward lines, as Alexander Barkov in the first 6 games of the season didn't have more than 5 shots on goal in the first 6, and the last 3 Barkov has been a little bit more aggressive, and a lot of that has been because of Matthew Kachuk now being inserted on that top line for the Florida Panthers. And hey, Barkov has ended his drought of not scoring throughout this young season. Just broke it recently against the Ottawa Senators at home. So they're looking to get going a little bit. The offense has still been there, and the defense has been a little different for the Panthers as well, as they are not putting as much pressure on their goalies. I just looked this up this morning as far as shots against compared to the rest of the National Hockey League, because I've been talking mostly about how they're not allowing that many shots on Bobrovsky and Knight, but compared to the rest of the league, they're inside the top 5 of the least amount of shots against, even though they're getting under 900 save percentage right now from their goalies.
That's awesome. And yeah, I wanted to ask about the goalies too, because Carl and I have talked about, the potential acquisition of, Sergei Bobrovsky, because we're just like, well, the Panthers, I'm sure they want to get rid of cap space. The Coyotes have cap space and maybe might need a veteran goalie down the road. I'm not saying we should do it, but, there's reason to have said, it's like, hey, why not? But let's talk about the goalies and how they've done, like, and this decision to keep both of them, because I know there was that talk too, just like, hey, maybe we'll just stick on to one of them.
Yeah, right now the Panthers. It's not that they have no choice in keeping both of them right now, but the no new move clause that Sergei Bobrovsky currently has makes it a little difficult to move them. And last year, Bill Zito was kind of trying to work for a trade to Bobrovsky. He was like testing the waters, but nothing really came to fruition on that. But as far as Sergei Bobrovsky's contract, his full no move his no move clause doesn't become a modified no trade clause until July 1st of 2024. So as far as a trade of shipping out Sergei Bobrovsky, the earliest that I think would happen would be when free agency opens in July of 2024. So it looks like he's going to be here for at least one more season after this year. But Hey, it's been a treat to watch Sergei Bobrovsky. I know the save percentage doesn't really stick out as something that's really it's very eye opening as far as that number, but the defense is protecting the goaltenders. They could still be better on special teams. Their penalty kill started off really well, and kind of they've been it's fell off a little bit in the last few games. Their power play, mostly offensively, has been struggling, but even strength, the way this team performs on even strength, they control the possession, they clog up the neutral zone, they're forcing players to go outside. So it's giving those less percentage shots on the goaltender. So right now it's a good situation right now for the Panthers, even though they're as cap strapped as they are this season. Luckily for the Cats, and honestly the rest of the NHL, the cap is going to go up. They're going to have some more space. So a buyout for Sergei Bobrovsky is less likely, and either way for this Panthers team, even though they're going to have the most expensive goalie tandem come next year.
Absolutely. I think another couple questions that come to me, and this is kind of to tee up something that of another conversation that probably will take up a decent amount of time based off of even coming back the other way. First off is tell me about some of the prospects that you guys
Yeah,
got.
so of course Anton Lundell being on that third line now with getting some new line mates right now this year in Colin White and and Colin White on it on the right side, and for Anton Lundell, for him, he's always getting in the defensive zone on his faceoffs and it's just been performing so well for Anton Lundell. And Spencer Knight, he's a young guy who's still taking a little bit of time to develop for him. And for the guys in the American Hockey League, the Charlotte Checkers have started off 4-0. Right now, we're actually playing the Bridgeport Islanders, was just checking the score of that one, and for them, they've been off to a great start of the season, and for the Cats, Anton Lundell has just been a treat to watch, and he's been inserted on that power play one for him, and a lot of and some of the prospects for the Checkers down there. An impressive one has been Matt Gutsta for the Cats. He's been an impressive one down there as well.
Awesome. The main reason why I ask, and this is something that can cross over segments when before we go back the other way, is the reason why I asked about that is because as I'm pretty sure you know, Arizona is in the market of trading one defenseman, Jacob Chikrin, and the reason I was interested in talking to you mainly because a lot of us know that Chikrin has some roots in South Florida. Is there any interest on that side?
I think there is interest in Jacob Chikrin, but the chances of pulling off a trade for the Panthers is less likely because of the lack of draft capital for the Cats. And of course, this is a team that's going to have at least 11 million in cap space come next year, so it's going to be a little tough this year to fit Jacob Chikrin into the mix. I've seen that Columbus has been interested in Jacob Chikrin, and I've seen Ottawa, but Ottawa has been reluctant to trade a guy like Shane Pinto. Florida Panthers just recently saw the Ottawa Senators just recently this past Saturday. So you kind of see why that Ottawa is reluctant to trade Shane Pinto to the Arizona Coyotes, and manning that second line for now for Ottawa, even because of Josh Norris being hurt. You could see why that the Ottawa Senators will want to keep Shane Pinto in the mix.
Absolutely. Makes sense. We still got more to get to on this crossover episode of Locked On Coyotes, Locked On Florida Panthers. In just a moment, we're going to continue previewing this game, but I want to first reach out to you guys and tell you guys about our partners from Simply Safe. It's if you've thought about securing your home with home security but have been putting it off, you want to listen up right now. Simply Safe listener, or sorry, right now, Locked On Coyotes and Locked On Panthers listeners can order the number one rated Simply Safe home security system for 50% off. This is their biggest offer of the year, and you won't want to miss it. Did you know that over the holidays, property crimes and like burglaries and package thefts spiked nationally? That's why you should check out Simply Safe Home Security because they've got the best home security of 2022 by U.S. News and World support for a third year in a row. They got 24/7 professional monitoring agents that use fast protect technology exclusively from Simply Safe to capture critical evidence and verify if a threat is real so you can get priority police response. Don't miss your chance to save big on the only security system that I recommend. Get 50% off any new Simply Safe security system at simplysafe.com/lockedonnhl. This is their biggest discount of the year, so don't wait. That's simplysafe.com/lockedonnhl. There is no safe like Simply Safe. All right, so now I want to go turn the reins over to Armando. He's going to go ahead and ask me some questions about Arizona.
First of all, you got to tell me all about the experience at Mullett Arena, because as someone who's also a host for a small market team, I cheer for the small markets in the NHL, and that includes Arizona. And I think the experience is pretty cool, being that close to, literally right on the campus of Arizona State out in Tempe, and just the fact that they have a student section as well. Tell me all about the experience of Mullett
Mullett
Arena.
Arena is super lively. Yeah, is it weird the fact that an NHL team is playing in a arena that has less than 5,000 seats? Yeah, but I think that's what kind of adds to the novelty of it. I was there on opening night, and it was like it was intimate, it was lively. There was lots of things going on. All these fans were loud as hell because the noise has nowhere to go. Plus, like you mentioned, there's that student section, and if you know anything about college students, they're just weird. So they do some of the weirdest things, and they're parked right behind the one of the nets. I think that's the net, and where the away team shoots twice. So like it,
That's interesting.
it makes things really fun. So like during the second period, they'll just go ahead and heckle the away goalie and as much as possible. Sometimes you'll see students wear banana suits. You'll see them wear other hockey jerseys, like you see like the Chiefs jersey from the Slapshot. Like it's so many different like things going on and so many different backgrounds. It's just super fun. Like I really like if people in Arizona can afford it, I highly recommend people to check out a game at Mullett Arena because it is actually like a fun experience for this temporary fix that they're doing until the new one gets built.
Yeah, and for Arizona, just last week the news came out about the vote that's going to be taking place on November, I believe November 29th, as the city of Tempe will be voting. Tell us more detail on how that, on the details of that vote
Yeah,
coming up.
so there's obviously the vote is projected date November 29th, but they also have a lot of other city council meetings before then. I think like November 15th, November 22nd, and some other one also as well. But there's a decent amount of city council meetings as they discuss everything like that. But from my understanding, is the vote will likely actually not be whether or not to truly approve the proposal. Actually very well might be a chance that there will be a vote to turn the proposal over as a referendum to the city of Tempe voters, which will make things really interesting. As of right now, do know public opinion does sit at 60-40 in favor of the Coyotes proposal from the city of Tempe voters, but like again, that would throw a whole wrench through things because like we were expecting November 29th to be all right. Like we can breathe a sigh of relief. This thing's approved. If they turn it over to the voters, it's going to take a couple extra months.
Mm. Yeah, and I remember just watching a YouTube video on the situation in Tempe, how the Arizona Cardinals years ago were trying to get a stadium out in Tempe, but the situation was because the airport that's nearby in
Mm-hmm.
Tempe, because of being able to land, and you need to have a certain distance between arena and landing planes over in Tempe. Uh, has that been more of a conversation this time around with the new
Oh yeah,
proposal?
absolutely. Actually, in fact, the city of Phoenix and Sky Harbor Airport have actually been attacking this proposal like crazy. They've been sending out mailers to city of Tempe and Scottsdale residents saying, "Hey, this is going on," and also kind of throwing out a lot of misinformation, saying that, you know, talking about, oh, it's going to redirect where the planes go because the Coyotes talked about, height limitations, and like, yeah, so this is how high the planes go. This is the highest of any of our buildings that are going to be going in this development. So we should have no issues there. Then they turned over to noise and everything like that. So the city of Phoenix and Sky Harbor Airport is not going to let this one down. They believe it's in violation of an intergovernmental agreement between the two cities, and we fully expect that Phoenix and and the airport will be suing Tempe and the Coyotes if it gets approved.
Mhm. And I think it's really cool that they're also going to be putting like an entertainment district around. So there's more than just the arena itself. Then there's going to be some cool restaurants and all that. And I know that the proposal to put ASU hockey and the Coyotes in one folded as far as that, but still the opportunity for them to get an actual district around. As someone who recently went to Atlanta to see the new Braves ballpark and seeing how that's developed around the stadium, I think it's a really cool opportunity for the city of Tempe as well as to keep their team, because of, once again, I root for small market teams, and I think the whole saying, if you build it, they will come, or as they say in the bench warmers, if you build it, nerds will come. But as far as the team itself, Shane Gostisbehere, South Florida native, leading the charge in points as far as the Arizona Coyotes, and let's talk about also the goaltending. What do you make of this team as constructed? Is it mostly on the defense giving up so many goals, or is it more on the
Oh,
goaltending?
I think it's a mix of both. I don't trust the goalies enough to be getting all the shots that they're getting. They're getting too many big opportunities. So that's on the defense. This defense is looked really extremely lackluster. I mean, obviously Shane Gottsbehere is a massive bright spot, but outside of that, you have a lot of super young guys who just don't have the experience. And just don't have the ability to do, like, they're not, yeah, I guess that's the best way to put it. They don't have the experience, and they don't have their leader, right? Because Jacob Chikrin is currently on the IR for a injury that I'm still questioning whether or not is real. And it's, because he's been out for longer than Clayton Keller for a what was supposed to be a minor injury. But that's for a whole nother thing. But to see him gone and to see the impact that's making, and changes that have to go, there's a lot of things that have to be done. But I will say, JJ Mosier has looked really good. He was drafted in the 2021 draft, and he's looked really good since he got drafted. He's been a pretty important part to this defense. Like I said, it's not saying a lot because the defense itself isn't great, but I do think that he's going to be a pretty key portion of this rebuild.
Yeah, and of course there's former Florida Panther Lawson Krause as part of the organization. I do believe that he just recently got an extension, if I'm not mistaken, as well for the Coyotes. And of course, the mission for Coyotes is to get as much draft capital as possible. They recently drafted Logan Cooley. Of course, the mission for this year is to continue to tank for Connor Bedard. How much of Connor Bedard have you
I
watched?
haven't watched enough, but I wouldn't watch a lot, but I've watched enough to be able to know that, like, this kid is going to be like generational. Like, this kid can change the Coyotes in, like, half a night.
Hmm. Yeah, and the thing is, I think the cool thing is that what they're doing in these 3 years with having this arena that they have now is still to create an atmosphere enough for that, even though it's 5,000, and for people outside of those 5,000 people that show up every night and say, okay, there's an atmosphere there, there's a rowdiness there. We believe we could take this to a new arena, as well as them building something as far as getting young players into the mix, and then by the time the new arena opens, that they'll be competitive. And of course there's going to be that new energy with a new arena. Of course we're seeing that with this one, with Mullett Arena now, and even a bigger energy for the new arena in Tempe, which we hope that gets built. Because I remember just in 2012 when Marlins Park, now called Lone Depot Park, was open. Not only did they get a new ballpark at the time, but they signed a whole bunch of free agents on the team, to try to create an energy. Of course, that season didn't go well for the Fish, but there was still a little bit of that energy at the time of a new place. So what I'm seeing for the Coyotes is that they're creating so much cap space so that not only they get these young guys into the mix, that they can sign big name free agents to what's hopefully like 8-year deals to keep them there.
Oh, absolutely. I think one of the cool plans would be to see Austin Matthews come back home, right? That's the big plan. That's the big hope.
I doubt it.
And you look at the timeline in 2024. There is a decent chance that it could happen, because by that time Connor Bedard would be a Coyote if he ends up getting drafted and the Coyotes win the lottery. Logan Cooley could be ready to emerge. Connor Geeky potentially could be ready to emerge. Dylan Gunther is already there. Like, this team will be there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what we hope. That's what we hope for this Coyotes team. And the score of tonight's game won't necessarily say too much of what's going to be a few years from now, but we know what the plan is for both teams. But in segment number 3, we're going to go over everything from Bet Online on tonight's matchup. So we're going to discuss that next here on this crossover edition of Locked On Florida Panthers and Locked On Coyotes.
So let's go ahead and get to that. Let's take a look. So we're going to go to the Bet Online odds, courtesy of our exclusive, the Locked On Podcast Network exclusive sportsbook, Bet Online. We're going to go and check it out. Florida Panthers are favorites at -1.5 with a -295 money line, plus 260. Decide to bet on Arizona with a total points of 6.5. Scoring is up, Armando. 6.5 to me always seems a little bit low.
Mm. It's funny because the Panthers are averaging just about 3 goals a game now for the season. And I don't know. This sounds like a game that would be one that you could see like 7 or 8 goals, but I actually would probably hit the under on this one for tonight. As low as that sounds, I just think when with the stretch that the Panthers have had of a few road games, just one, and then traveling out west to start. This Panthers team, as far as this West Coast trip coming up, facing 3 of the 4 bottom teams in the entire NHL in Arizona, San Jose, and Anaheim Ducks. Even though the Anaheim Ducks just beat the Toronto Maple Leafs the other night, I think there could be an opportunity for the Panthers to maybe overlook an opponent, because we kind of saw that with the Chicago Blackhawks last week, for the Panthers, as they got off to a very, very slow start. So chances are for this one, there's an opportunity that the Panthers don't really turn it on until the third period. So, but I still think they're going to come out with a win, but maybe a little bit of a slow start as they're adjusting to a new time on this trip.
Absolutely. I'm trying to figure out whether or not I want to do over under. So far, I think all the games at Mullett Arena have been 2-3. Final score 2-3. Arizona only scores 2. The latter scores 3. The opening night against Winnipeg, it went to overtime. So like, they've been lower scoring. It's only been 5 total points scored at Mullett Arena, averaging. Does that trend continue? I think it depends on who's in net. It depends on a lot of different factors. I'm like, even though I do think it's still low, given the trends of the NHL, I'm still going to bet under because of the trends of at Mullett Arena. Um, but I think in this case, the Coyotes are going to try to turn things around this one. New month, new attempt to try to finally, get some more life into Mullett Arena. I think the Coyotes are going to try to get the win on this one, but just barely. I'm going to go the same final score of the last two games that they've had, except flip it around 3-2 Arizona Coyotes.
Whoa, a little bit of a different score there for on your end, but hey, this Florida Panthers team, they're not expected to blow teams out like they did last season, and there might be games where you might see the Florida Panthers slip up a few games, and this one for Paul Maurice, he spoke at the end of their game against Ottawa on Saturday, talking about just trying to create good habits and just if they are able to qualify for the playoffs, then about playing their best hockey when it matters most. So as long as they finish in the inside of the top 8 and find themselves in the playoffs, they don't necessarily have to win the division, but for the Panthers, it's really just about creating the good habits. But hey, luckily, once again, the Panthers have been able to protect their goalies, even though on paper this is a less talented team than what they had last year. They're still missing Aaron Ekblad, who won't be in the Panthers lineup until mid-November. So it's going to be a little while until we see Aaron Ekblad. But Brandon Montour has stepped up for the Panthers, now logging 27 minutes in the last game, now top 5 in the league as far as time on ice for a defenseman. So kind of a little bit of an adjustment for the Panthers as they have like a different look now.
Awesome. A single player to watch out for who might make the impact for Florida.
I'm gonna say Rudolph Balcers. He's a guy. He's a guy who he benefited very early on, like I said earlier, on the Matthew Tkachuk line. And another player that I want to highlight is Eetu Luostarinen, who has the last 2 seasons that he's been with the Florida Panthers, he's played on that fourth line center role for the Panthers, and now Paul Maurice inserting him on that third line with Anton Lundell and Colin White, and it took them a few games just recently until that line gave up a goal. So that's their best defensive line right now for the Panthers, and just an aggressive forechecking line who pins the opposition in their own zone as well. So that those are 2 players to look out for. Both left wingers, Rudolph Balcers and Eetu Luostarinen.
And for Arizona, I'm going to put my focus onto Nick Ritchie. He's he's had quite himself a good start of the season so far. He's looked really, really good. But I also want to heavily focus on Dylan Guenther. He's playing his 8th and 9th games of this season this week, which means the Arizona Coyotes have a decision to make on what they want to do, whether or not to keep him up here in the NHL or to send him back to the WHL, where he spends at least one more year in his junior league, which we'll see what happens. I mean, he's looked pretty good. I just can't see him stay up. I just don't, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and not only is Dylan Guenther in that situation, but a guy that the Arizona Coyotes passed on in the draft by one spot, Shane Wright. He's also dealing with that situation as well. As far as being sent, but to the OHL in Kingston. So as Shane Wright has been scratched quite a few times in Seattle. So not the only situation where you have to make decisions for a young prospect.
Absolutely. Armando, it's great having you on. Where can listeners find you and your podcast?
They can find me on Twitter at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on Twitter at LO_FLA Panthers. And they'll see all my tweets related to the Florida Panthers. They'll also see my tweets in relation to the Miami Dolphins, who are now tied for the 5th seed in the wild card in the AFC. So they'll see a lot of those tweets. They'll be seeing a lot of tweets of me talking about the Marlins and their new manager in Skip Schumacher as well. So they'll be seeing all those South Florida related tweets come if they decide to follow me on
Absolutely.
Twitter.
That's Armando Velez. You can follow me, myself, at Robyn_Leano, Robyn with a Y_LEANO, and Locked On Coyotes at LO_Coyotes. And you can follow both of our podcasts wherever you get your podcasts, on Apple, on Google, Spotify, on the Audacy app, and on YouTube. Well, that's going to be it for this episode. Uh, be sure to just give us a follow, give us a like, give us a 5-star review if you have yet to already. But once again, thanks everyone for tuning in to this crossover episode. Hope you guys are staying safe out there. Hope you guys are staying healthy. And for my Coyotes listeners, don't forget to howl on.